On tonight's Cover One Buffalo podcast, powered by BetUS, we are joined by friend of the show, Dan Essien of Badlands. But first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, Merry Christmas. How was Christmas in the Quinn household?
Merry Christmas. It was fantastic. I got little kids. They came down Christmas morning. It was awesome. It goes too quick. I get so excited for it, Greg. The anticipation of it, the build up, and then it's gone.
Credit to you. In my moment of stress, you had a very sage response that, like, the best part of Christmas is the build up and the all the things that lead up to it, and the decorating and the cookies and the movies and the buying and wrapping presents and stuff. And I had so much work, travel, and so many things. It got to me. At the finish line, it got to me. And you were right that is the best part, because yesterday I don't even know. I love that I'm in the time of year where I have no idea what day of the week it is. Yesterday I went in a flash. Like, Christmas itself went so fast, and it was crazy.
Yeah, it's gone. And honestly, like, I get a little bit of a hungover because I like it so much that, like, it feels like when you come back from a nice vacation, you're like, we went to Hawaii a couple years ago, and you come back and it's like, takes like 3 or 4 days of like, man, I kind of wish I was back there. And I'm always like that with Christmas. I kind of wish I was back there. And it doesn't help. No offense to Dan here. No, it doesn't help that we still got Jets, Patriots here. And like, all I want is the postseason, right? And we got to get through these next couple of weeks. And it's a little bit of a hangover post Christmas. But on that note, I do hope everybody here listening, watching, joining us also had fantastic, happy holidays to you and your family. So thanks for joining us, those that are out here.
Yeah. So speaking of, after Dan, Aaron and I are going to do a little bit of our William Mattar here to help segment, talking about what we have left in these last 2 weeks, how we would approach it, how we think the team's going to approach it, how we can clinch certain spots, what we're going to be watching for, and the strategy of how to go into games that, now that we've seen what happened on Christmas Day and that the Chiefs have locked up the number 1 seed, how the Bills approach this. But first, there are games to be played, and without further ado, you've had him on before, and you've seen him around the Jets world. Our man Dan, how we doing, sir?
Doing pretty good. How are y'all doing tonight?
Living the dream, buddy.
Not bad. Well, like we said, we spent so long not even going to the playoffs and wishing that we had these opportunities, and we were joking pre-show that, like, our fan base is still learning how to deal with the expectations of, like, hey, this is our 5th straight division championship, 5 straight years of hosting a playoff game. The previous 4, we've won a playoff game, and in one of the seasons won 2 playoff games.
But now the panic's setting in that we're not finishing, we're not winning enough.
So we were joking. I don't not take joy in the Jets not doing well, but like the Patriots not doing well, I could see it. Like, I saw that coming, and like, hey, I already joked last week, like, I'm not happy with how good Drake May looks. Like, that's not cool. I was really hoping he would be way worse than he is, but I get why they're losing. The Dolphins are the same early front runners that fade every year. There's no shocks or surprises there. As I was preparing for this show, and I'm going through and I'm looking, like, it hasn't been like injury disaster. Like, every team's got some injuries. There's important people that are missing, but like a lot,
you could even blame that Miami on injuries, right? Like, the 2 injuries set them back.
Yeah, have more. How is this Jet season come down like this? It's wild.
Yeah. It's been pretty bad, pretty annoying and frustrating for everyone involved. It's just so much. It's just a lot of letdowns, and it just seemed like they just kept compiling. And yeah, once they started losing games, like that Denver game was a pretty like switch moment for them where things were like, oh, like the players start to lose confidence. You got a lot of the veteran players that are just blaming everyone, pointing fingers. When that starts happening, everyone's just kind of like, well, I don't understand what we're doing here. Then the stuff with Salah happens, and it's just kind of a big snowball that hasn't really stopped, and it's gained so much momentum that you're basically certain that it will continue through the offseason, because of just how negative things got so quickly. But yeah, it's such a talented team. They had a couple, like you mentioned, the injuries did happen, but they're not, injuries that haven't happened for other teams. Like they lost Jermaine Johnson and it was a huge hit, but like Will McDonald's been incredible. So you're like, oh, great. We have that. And it worked out really well. And you kind of just look around like, wait, like what happened?
Yeah.
How
are you as content creators and the fan base, like sort of, you're in a weird spot of obviously an aging Aaron Rodgers who was supposed to catapult this franchise with a good young core, right, into this next level. That good young core now under this Aaron Rodgers experiment is 2 years older. A lot of those contracts are going to start coming to a head into the 5th-year options on some of those first-round guys. We've heard some of the rumblings, and I don't pay close enough attention of like Garrett Wilson. Is he going to want to stick around? Stuff like that. Like, where is the fan base of, you fired the GM who had ups and downs of drafting, but pretty much like year after year was like, man, I like a lot of what the Jets have done. I like a lot of these picks. I was big on Vera Tucker. I was big on Garrett Wilson. I love Brandon, like all these picks you've compiled and young talent. But now you're getting to a point of like those contracts are going to start coming up. You're going to have to build new assets, get a new GM. Where is the balance of, do you go with the core that you've got? How do you fix? What are you doing going ahead? Is Aaron Rodgers coming back? Like, where is everybody?
I feel like we are very quickly and rapidly approaching Aaron Rodgers' departure time.
Yeah.
There's a couple week period. I think it was kind of the last 3 weeks ago or so where it felt like, maybe he'll stay. He's starting to play better. We now see what it looks like when 40-something-year-old Aaron Rodgers is healthy, and maybe he has a little bit of pop left. But I think things started to just really deteriorate once again the last couple of weeks. And a lot of the comments that he's saying, I think, are starting to turn off a lot of Jets fans. A lot of the stuff with Garrett Wilson, apparently them not meshing, which is, I feel like the irony with so much of this is that Jets fans spent so much time in the offseason being like, this is like, their interactions are normal. Like quarterbacks and receivers always argue and talk extensively about how they want to operate, and then you get to this point of the season, you're like, maybe they do hate each other, and who knows how long that was the case. And
it's wild what we can tell ourselves.
Exactly. And in this case, it's like maybe the 24-year-old, 23-year-old was correct. Like maybe he was calling him out on stuff that he was right about, and it's tough to see because now most of the games are really just like kind of the Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams show, which is cool for them and it's a good story, and they'll get to ride that out. But for Jets fans and for the Jets' future, nobody cares about that. We got to think about what's actually going to happen, beyond that.
And so you talk about the way these games are, is that they're not these horrendous blowout losses. Obviously there's been a couple weeks, the Cardinals game was weird. That one got out of hand and went downhill quickly. But for the most of the Steelers game wasn't great. But there's a lot of games where it certainly looks like they're going well. There's a lot of nice first half and then kind of unraveling in the second half. Has there been any theme to any of this of how it got, into this trend of setting up well, looking like they're going to win, and then kind of just not able to close?
Yeah, they're just front runners. It's just what it is. If anything happens against the grain or out of the ordinary or just against what they've planned for, they just are in complete disarray. And it was like that with Robert Saleh. It was like that after Robert Saleh. Little mistakes will happen or catastrophic errors will happen and they cannot recover. They just all go in, it just all starts going downhill. And a lot of that starts with Aaron Rodgers. When you have a veteran player that everybody looks up to and they say that this guy's going to come in and change your entire team, I think a lot of what folks have forgotten is that, in a lot of those his previous teams where he's won, he had a lot of veteran leadership alongside of him. And he had a lot of guys that they're not going to fall prey to the, oh, I'm really in a negative dark space right now. I'm going to yell at everybody. I'm going to get pissed off on the sideline, and then I'm going to get over it in like 15 minutes and then go back out there. Like, he can't do that with this young team because they're looking at him like, okay, what now? And he's,
the culture was established in Green
exactly.
Bay. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. But like, even you said they're front runners, but even that Seahawks game, like I went 4 games back and watched my way back, and like seeing him up 21-0, and then he throws the interception, and it just like spiraled. That's like kind of exactly what you're talking about, where one mistake spiraled out of control on them. But they were playing like, I couldn't imagine being a fan base where you get like 3 or 4 special teams turnovers and points off of them, and you still find a way to lose a game like that. It's kind of crazy, man.
Yes, exactly. And it's funny because we had a couple folks at the game, and we're texting, and after the interception, like basically all of us were like, okay, that was it.
It's like 21-7.
Right. We're winning. We're up 2 scores. They were just kind of like, yeah, that's probably it. Yeah. Like, we don't know how it'll happen, but like, yeah, it's probably it.
Oh, man.
So I'll start out of the defensive side here, and this has to be Aaron's like poster child for what he's been ranting about all season. The Jets are 4th in the NFL in yards allowed and 28th in DVOA. And you look at that combination of, like, from a raw statistical standpoint, a lot of more traditional analysts, they're going to look at that, are going to say, well, hey, they're 4th in yards allowed. Their defense is really stepping up. But every situational, you look through, they've somehow only created 13 turnovers all season long. All of their third down conversion, their success rate, everything, the adjusted line yards, like a team with this kind of front is still 26th in adjusted line yards. And being able to be in that situation, I know Quinn Williams finally did just miss a game. You know, he had actually played the majority of this season. I don't know. It looks like he was limited in practice here, so maybe there's a chance. But I'm sure they're getting into some of those, you know, hey, risk versus reward decisions. Exactly. But I got to start on the back end here with this team, because if I had told you coming into this season that DJ Reed was going to have the season he's had and has looked the way he did, you would have had to have assumed that this was going to be a storybook season. How has he? I mean, is it sacrilegious for me to say leapfrog Sauce Gardner as the best corner on the team?
It's wild because I think Sauce had that just really terrifying stretch in the middle of the season. I think he started to recover a little bit now, but yeah, DJ Reed he's been great. There have been some games where. And this is the frustrating part about all those close games that they keep losing. There've been a couple of games where you're like, this is going to be a great story for him. He's going to get the game ball, and he's played out of his mind. And then they lose, and you're like, well, now everyone's going to forget that he played this well. But like, he's been great this season, and it's in a year where a lot of folks were saying before the season he might be the piece that has to go, considering all the contract situations that they're going to have to deal with coming up. And now you're looking at it, and you're like, all right, what exactly is going to be the plan? Do you now think about what life is like with after Aaron Rodgers, and then consider what you're going to do with your draft picks, and consider a piece like Sauce Gardner? Although, like, as the season goes along and as he started to play late in the season, you're kind of just like, maybe we just keep like, there's just not a lot of players like him. But like, yeah, he's made it tough. He's made it a lot tougher decision than I even personally thought it would be, despite being a fan of his game. But he's been great. He's been great.
You look in the middle here, and same idea. If I had told you that CJ Mosley is only going to play 4 games, you're probably like, all right, we'll see how it goes. But Quincy Williams, I think, had already kind of established himself as like, hey, he's a real thing. I don't know that I knew Jamian Sherwood was a human who existed like on a roster. I don't know that I was familiar with him as a person out in the space. He's been really good. Like, he's been a legit, really nice piece. Like, is he now? Mosley is getting to the point now where you have this many seasons where he can't stay on the field. Like, obviously, I don't know about Hall of Famer, but like a great player, like a genuinely great player. But at some point, you just have to accept the reality that, hey, it may not be there. Has Sherwood now given them kind of the assurance that, like, hey, we're going to be okay?
I don't know if it's there yet. I think that he's played better than expectations, but I do think that a lot of that Fortunately or unfortunately, like Jeff Ulbricht's going to be gone. Jeff Ulbricht is an outstanding linebacker coach. Like the majority of linebackers under his tutelage have excelled. I don't know if Jamie Sherwood's going to look as good in a different defense or under a different coach. I know Quincy Williams is solidified to a point where he probably will. But yeah, I'd be a little bit concerned how Jamie Sherwood will fare in the next regime. But I think they at least have a solid role player in Jamie Sherwood that they can potentially have some flexibility in what they want to do in free agency in the draft because of that. But yeah, he's not totally solidified as a long-term piece for me yet. Yeah,
but it's nice that it's at least a consideration to see that a guy like that popping out of there.
Definitely lucked out. Yeah.
All right, on the front line, I don't think that like Quinn Williams, his season by last year's standard, I guess, is kind of disappointing because like, oh no, he's not going to have 70 total pressures again on the season, which is an insane number that probably only Chris Jones is going to top this year. And now he only has 50 so far this year. So maybe by his dominant standards, instead of being a top 2 defensive tackle, he's only been a top 10 defensive tackle this year. Heaven forbid. But obviously there's no concern about him long-term. He is just a grizzly bear in a uniform and is going to be a problem. I didn't expect Will McDonald. I don't know that I had chalked anything up as, any kind of bust or anything crazy like that. He obviously had a quick flash last year, but you couldn't see anything. I did not expect it to come around with a 10 sack season right off the bat. And he's slowed down from his early pace, but that seems like he's really now coming to his own. 54 pressures on his own. That's now like, okay, good. We got one there.
Yep. Yeah. I huge fan of Will McDonald. I'm so happy with the progress he's made, especially just considering a lot of all the crap he kind of had to go through at the early stages. A lot of like, this reason's why he's not playing, and this is what he has to do in the offseason, blah, 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 blah. There's so many things where, they wanted him to gain like 15 pounds and he kind of did it. And then they very publicly said that he did it. And you're wondering like, what is exactly the plan with him? And then, he ends up stepping up and fulfilling the spot with Jermaine Johnson hurt and putting up 10 plus sacks. So it's like, yeah, this is best case scenario with Will McDonald. And he's at a point now where he can kind of flow into this like critical point in his career. Like he was an older rookie, but the good part about being that older rookie is if you do kind of discover or unlock that pass rush potential in him, he's at a point where he can basically peak out at a much quicker rate than you would with somebody else where you have to wait till year 3, year 4, or year 4, I guess. But like he's about to head into year 3 next year, and he's looking like he's the real deal. So they have a little bit more certainty there. But I think with a lot of the decisions they made along the defensive line, it's just they kind of hung Q and Will McDonald out to dry this season. Kinlaw was not as good as they had hoped. They didn't really know what to do with Reddick. And
I was going to ask about Reddick next. Was obviously I think long term getting Johnson back, hopefully healthy, and having McDonald and Johnson on each side is a nice setup. I think you can put a lot of guys next to Quinn and probably end up okay. So they'll just roll the dice on next year's whatever mid-range free agent guy that instead of Kinlaw, they'll roll the dice on somebody else. But in the short term, it was such a weird story with how everything played out with Reddick, but now he's been playing and has been moderately effective, like not a non-zero, like 19 pressures isn't nothing, 2 sacks isn't nothing, but obviously not what it was expected to be, but didn't have any of the ramp up. Super weird situation, very contentious. Now he's there, but he's starting to ramp up more and more snaps. Are we seeing any flashes of the guy that was there before?
As someone who loves Hassan Reddick and loved him on the Eagles, no, like it does not look the same, and it like 100% has a lot to do with the offseason and not getting that time with his teammates and learning how to rush in the scheme effectively. But like, yeah, it does not look the same. And granted, he might run it back and figure it out, have a full offseason next year, and do it maybe for another team, perhaps. that might be the case.
Yeah,
but,
he's full free agent, right?
Full free agent, yeah. So. Yeah, it might be the weirdest year for him, and then he just completely forgets about it on a different team. But just super disappointing and kind of annoying that this kind of turned out the way it did. They fought a lot of time about money, and then by the time he came back to the team, they're like, "So welcome back," but the season's kind of like almost over.
And obviously, in hindsight, if you could have known what McDonald was turning into, and you let him see, like, hey, here's what you could have played opposite of to set up what is realistically your last chance at a payday. If you just had showed up, and like I said, it was a good chunk of money. Like, it wasn't nothing. He wasn't playing on a minimum or something.
Right.
So just a lot of hindsight 2020 here of what could have been.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, we're going to jump into the other side of the ball. But before we do, Carl here has a question for you, Dan. Question for Dan. Could this team win as constructed if they got Sam Darnold back? Sam will be a free agent, so is it possible, or has that bridge been burned? And I'm going to add on top of that, how hard is it for Jets fans to sit and watch the success of Sam Darnold outside of that franchise and outside of that building?
You know what's interesting? I actually think that Jets fans are mostly enjoying it. And I do think that part of that is that it's in the NFC and we don't have to care about it too much.
Deal with it directly, sure.
Right. But it's been kind of cool. Like, he's so confident, and Kevin O'Connell's a superstar, man. It's happened so quick too. Like, but yeah, like they've done such a great job with him. So yeah, I'm happy to see it happen for him. But I think for the Jets, I think that the chances are low, but I think that if you're going to try to make it happen, the best way to do it is you probably have to hire Josh McCown as your offensive coordinator. And he has to also be willing to come through and make that career jump with the Jets, which is a high pressure situation. But I think that's someone who's kind of grown with him in his career change. And he was with him with the Jets, and they, he got to see that early part of his career too, and he got to get familiar with him and become a little bit of mentor there. But yeah, I think that would probably be the best scenario for him. I think there are obviously other coaches out there that he would potentially trust as well, but I think that would be the highest level of trust you can accomplish in terms of like, hey, Sam, this is a situation that could be really good for you. You get a little bit of continuity, as opposed to, potentially jumping in with another disastrous situation in a high pressure market. But I think for Sam, that Minnesota market was the perfect market for him.
Go away. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah. I don't know that he's going to be in a rush to come back to the insanity of New York.
No, plus you guys are going to end up with Kirk Cousins anyway, right? So no, I have to. It's the path for you guys. No, so I'm not even going to touch on quarterback because like it does feel like if Aaron Rodgers has a day, that could be frustrating for this particular matchup. But just talking about the Jets, what I really want to get down to on this specifically is we talked about the draft earlier and some of these guys that I liked, and no more is that true than in the backfield of Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. And when they drafted Allen to go with Breece Hall and some of the pieces along the offensive line, I was legitimate. That was the thing I was more scared about. The media was like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is going to put this team over the top. And I was looking at this Bills defense who has struggled against the run and who has built this kind of too high safety look to that the Jets were going to come out and punch us in the face every single time. And this run game has just not, it has spun its tires. And Greg had kind of talked about it. You look at this team on paper, so much of it doesn't make sense. And to me, the thing that makes the least amount of sense is how ineffective this run game is. Tell me what is going on here, Dan. Why is this? It doesn't make any sense to me. It should be awesome. It should be a dynamic run game.
It's there. They just cannot figure out the rhythm. They can't figure out when to call certain plays. It's just, it feels like it's an afterthought a lot of the time. Like once they start to get away with from the script, a lot of it is really just Aaron Rodgers. Like just, hey, like we're going to throw in a couple runs, but Aaron, do you want to just go ahead and figure things out? Which is tough because it's not going to be a lot of runs in that situation. And I think Breece Hall has really suffered from a lot of that. Like he's also had some injury issues as well, and Braylon Allen saw some time because of that. But I think when he's healthy, he's still not even getting the touches that he got last season. Last season, they would probably give him 25, 30 touches a game and make sure he has that. And this season
a monster
is just like
in the pass game. He was so good in the pass game down the stretch last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess like How I know Aaron Rodgers has like a lot of power, right, in the organization right now, but when it became this point in the season where it was almost a lost season for you guys, how has it still not turned into, all right, we have to do something different and lean into this run game? And these are young players that we're trying to develop still, especially Braylon Allen, right? You're trying to develop him into that next running back.
That's honestly the part that's confused me the most about the season. There was reports a few weeks ago, I think about a month and a half ago, that they might shut Aaron Rodgers down and just let him recover and get healthy. And then it just seems like he perhaps just said no, and then they thought about it and they're like, well, you might not even be back next season, so maybe just get on the field and work out your contract here. Yeah. And it just seems like that's been the attitude of everyone all the way down to the coaching staff, is like, okay, you're here, so we're gonna get our money's worth and you're gonna be on the field. But like, it's just to the detriment of guys like Breece Hall. Like Breece Hall getting like 15 touches or 10 touches in a NFL regular season game at this point in his career is insanity, but that's just where we are now. Is that's just normalized. The Garrett Wilson stuff should be alarming to the coaching staff, and they should try to fix that. But like, again, it's gonna be the same deal of like, well, yeah, Aaron can deal with it. They can figure it out, and everything should be fine. And it's not the case. Like, if you let these things linger a lot, that's very quickly how you get to folks axing out and really poor contract situations.
In a day and age, like I have this kind of conversation all the time with Bills fans. We're concerned about our run defense. It's actually pretty good when you compare it to the league, but that's because the league isn't good at stopping the run as a whole. Like we watch the Bills and we're like, wow, we can't stop the run. It's like, well, nobody can. So you'd think you would lean into something like that. And it's crazy to me, but it brings me to this offensive line. Cause again, on paper, and I know Vera Tucker has had injuries and taken some time to get back from previous injuries here. And so I am putting that curve on him, but this line again on paper, I'll read it off right here. 21st adjusted line yards, 22nd in run stuff, 22nd getting to the second level, 25th in open runs, 14th in sacks. They're not as a unit doing good at any of it right now. And I know some of the sack stuff is also on Rodgers and blocking for him, but it doesn't match what I see it should be.
100%. You can make the argument, which is hard to say, but it is true. The more I think about it, like Olu Fashanu has possibly been their best offensive lineman, and he played a few games and then he got hurt, and now he's going to be out for the rest of the season, but he was extremely good this season. Joe Tippmann, I think, also has been a bit better as well than he was the previous year, and despite all the scares we had about the snap issues that happened during the offseason. But you're kind of looking at just a lot of underperformance, and it's just been weird. Like, you brought in somebody like Simpson, and it's like, oh yeah, he's going to help on the inside. You got some road graders with him and AVT, and it's just hasn't been that. Like, it just hasn't really been anything like
they don't
expected.
Look terrible. That's the thing. Like, I'm turning it on, and like I'm trying to pinpoint what looks bad and why the production's not there, and it looks sloppy and disjointed at times, but they aren't like getting whiffs and missing big time. Like, it's weird.
A lot of it is just like the pattern of play calling. It's just defense is keying on things, and things are getting a little predictable, and defense are just sort of like, they're kind of just shrugging and running to the ball and just being like, oh, well, that was easy. And okay.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So we've come down to the important part. Chad here asking the key question. The biggest thing we need to know is, will the Jets cover the +10? Our
Patriots
friends
did
here
last week, so there's a lot of pressure for you guys this week.
Well, so obviously this gets thrown around a lot, but and Bills fans have kind of talked about it back and forth here. But Josh Allen literally said it in the post-game press conference of like, hey, yeah, it's kind of tough when we're, strategically we're not showing our A stuff and just trying to go out there and not wanting to disclose anything. They're going to make the same kind of decisions here after we do our next segment. We're going to talk about, who do you rest? Who do you play? Anybody that's dinged up or injured, there's not much to play for. And why would you show any of your A+ play calls in a game that's not there? So let the fans know here. What is your prediction of what we see this weekend? Give us a score prediction.
I think we are going to see points. I think it's going to be deceptively close,
The weather is going to be nice.
The weather is going to be nice. Yes. I was kind of hoping it would be like super snowy and cold, and get a little, make Aaron Rodgers feel like it's Lambeau again. Just give him a little memory.
Yeah.
Jog the old jeans back up, maybe see if he still has that in him.
I don't know. The old joints get a little worse in the cold too.
He'll have a great first half. The second half might get pretty bad, but yeah, I'm gonna go with 21-24 Bills, but I think it's gonna be a deceptively close game. The Jets' defense is the most confusing thing on earth. I think they'll have some success. The one thing I always talk about whenever we play the Bills is, for some reason, the Bills always stop running, and that's usually true. That's usually the best thing for the Jets defense. So,
I mean, there's been some ones here and there, but on the whole, the defense that has given Josh Allen the biggest trouble in his career is the Jets. Like he's right. Owned the Dolphins. He's mostly beat the Patriots pretty badly, unless it's like 80-mile-an-hour winds. The one that has given the most consistent issues has been this Jets defense, and obviously it depends. Quinn Williams, if he gets rested per se, or his hamstring is flaring up again, whatever the decision may be. Obviously that's a huge difference. We're now seeing some of the other pieces here, but I think that's in the realm of possibility of what's there. So if any of the fans listening like Dan's choice here, go over to BetUS, use promo code YouTube150. You can get a deposit bonus up to $2,000, 150% on your first deposit, 125 on your second and third deposits. Go on over and check them out. Dan, let the people know where they can find more of your work and what you got coming up next.
Yes, sir. You can find me on the Badlands feed on Patreon. We are a psychotic group of Jets fans that have stayed with this program throughout the season, grinded through. Really proud of the boys for the work they've done over there. And you can catch my podcast over there as well. It's Buck the Trend. We're probably going to be talking about what do we have this week? We're talking a little off season, a little bit of what the Jets can maybe do along the defensive line. So nice. I love the trenches, so I usually end up talking about that at some point. So.
Best part. It's where the game's decided. I honestly, this season I think has reinforced that more than just about any in recent memory. Like the top teams across the board are being led by the teams that are winning up front, both offense and defenses. The trenches are deciding it.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you guys. You guys find his information down in the description below. Make sure you check him out. Appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for coming on, man. Happy New Year.
Happy.
Always fun to have Dan on. Does a great job. Make sure you guys check out his stuff. It's weird. Like we're in this spot. We'll save our score predictions for the end here, but I think. You had a great idea for William Mattar, and it's, we're here to help to kind of explain what this situation is. I know you've spent some time on the New York Times simulator, played around with a couple different things, what the percentages are. I played around with the ESPN one. If the Bills just win a game here in the last, all they gotta do is win a game. They lock up the 2 seed and everything that's there. I think there's a couple scenarios that we can see. It looks like there's going to be a pretty interesting finish for the AFC North. It's still in play for Baltimore to win the North right now. Pittsburgh is winning that.
Some out there are worried about the Bengals sneaking in still.
Which again, they've lost a lot of games for a reason, but I won't lie. Like I have a choice. I don't want to see Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I'm fine playing them. I'll take my chances, but I'd prefer it be the Colts or the Broncos or even the Chargers. Like I think the Chargers are a better overall team, but if you're telling me the single elimination any given Sunday style, I don't want Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow.
No, I just had to get that shot in on our friend Greg. That's the only reason
he's a delightful fellow.
Love you, Greg.
We'll give it to him.
Yeah.
So what are some nuggets you've come across here of how you would want to approach this last stretch of games? How would you be leaning in? Obviously, we saw 4 or 5 defensive starters rested last game. He talked about the vanilla play scheme. Eric, reinforced it that what he saw was vanilla play scheme that was not just, sour grapes or kind of covering up for things in the postgame presser. Eric, you kind of reiterated that, this looked real vanilla to him too. You think that's all we see the next 2 weeks?
Sorry. Offensively, I hope so. I don't think you need to do a whole lot more. I know that, like you said, the Jets can give this team some fits. I think if you lean vanilla and just stick to the run game's still dynamic, even in some of the more vanilla stuff. And I think that you can do enough to get what you need to, which is just get one more win here. And so offensively, I'm not worried. The offense is clicking. They're number 2 DVOA, the second overall pass, second overall run. Like, this offense is doing exactly what you want to do heading into the end of the season, right? Peaking, playing good, playing balanced. Brady is really calling good games. Even when I'm frustrated early, he turns it around and calls it the right way. Last week, I was pretty frustrated. They went away from the run so early, and it felt like, you and I were talking how it felt like they were kind of taking too many deep shots and maybe chasing some of the Josh Allen stuff, trying to get more explosive plays for him. They went back to the run. Everything started clicking again. And so I'm not super worried about the offense in that regard. I think when it is time, they're going to unload a bunch of stuff on teams. It's the defense right now that, even though there isn't a ton to play for outside of getting this win and getting that 2 seed, I think the defense, with the mix of injuries over the last month here of guys not playing, you had DeMar Hamlin out, Taylor Rapp out, Rasul Douglas out, Matt Milano in and out of the lineup, Dorian Williams, that conversation about, do you play Dorian Williams or do you play Matt Milano? That's something that the Bills, I don't know what the conversation is internally. I don't know if it's a done deal internally. I know Matt Perino asked McDermott about that specifically and what he was going to do with that position. And he kind of was like, hey, that is a conversation we have to have. Is that a real conversation internally, or does Matt Milano just come back in? And if he does, this 2 weeks, like, that ramp up hasn't gone. Even I was pumping everybody's brakes on that, Greg. Like, he's not going to come back and be the guy that we thought he was from 400 days of not playing. It looks a little worse than I even expected for as long here as I've expected. And so this 2 weeks is crucial if he is going to be the guy heading into the postseason. If it's not going to be him, get Dorian some more reps with Bernard. If they're going to platoon it where Matt's in on known passing plays and Dorian's going to be your run defender, like, I want to see some of that kind of getting worked out in this process. I would love to get the safeties back. Maybe Bishop has done enough on tape here over the last couple of weeks to get a look, but I don't want it to be starting with Cam Lewis. I know Cam Lewis also just showed up on the injury report, so those safeties need to get back healthy and start getting reps again. It's been a couple of weeks now since we've seen them playing. Rasul Douglas getting back in this. The defense is sliding down the charts. I know that's something I've kind of pumped everyone's brakes on. Like, the defense is a little bit better than it looks, but the run defense actually was the concern probably a month ago, and it's actually pretty good. The run defense has, but in place of them trying to sell out to stop the run, pass defense has really suffered. They're 16th in pass DVOA. The EPA isn't good. Eric was doing a bunch of statistics about third down defense specifically. Terrible in third down defense. Those are things that it's almost the opposite of the offense. I need to see the kitchen sink getting thrown here over the next couple of weeks and see stuff that is going to stick and see stuff that works for this unit, whether it's more man coverage, more blitzing better, more stunts, some of the stuff that we saw against Detroit early that was working. Maybe we need to go in and get a little bit more aggressive. So on the defensive side of the ball, Greg, I want to see them working to fix stuff. And on the offensive side of the ball, it's just stay healthy, don't show your hand, and get through this next 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're in the same mind. I offense 100%. I agree. I don't want to show anything. If we can't beat the Jets and the Patriots with our C+ offensive game, then so be it. Like, I don't even care. Like, if that is a flip flop with the second or third seed, I'm not that concerned with it. I think we can beat them either way. This offense is good enough to do it. It might be like the Patriots game where it's kind of ugly and clunky and doesn't feel easy like it is before, but it is what it is. And it might even cause Josh to do more of the big play hunting because he's trying to come up with production when we know we're intentionally not scheming it. I'm also not worried about the flipping the switch thing. I think they can go right back to it and be fine. Like, there's just enough cohesiveness and chemistry on this offense. They'll be fine. On the defensive side of it, I'm torn. I think some fans underestimate. You can game plan for defense too. So I don't want to show the Chargers, the Broncos, the Ravens, the Chiefs. I don't want to show them all the levers we're pulling and all the switches we're flipping and all the things we're trying. But I also don't think you can go completely vanilla. I think you got to test out a couple of them. So I don't know how you thread that needle and how you test out enough to be like, all right, I think that one worked a little bit. Let's put that in the back pocket. Okay, I think that one is a possibility. Let's put that in the back pocket. I don't want to just go over and over again and get to the point where we're, fully showing everything, just like literally kitchen sink, where you're making sure everything's working optimally and trying to find anything. It wouldn't be the end of the world if it worked, but I want to keep some of that back. I don't want to show everything there. So I'm torn on how to accomplish that without showing too much. Test enough, a little bit of experimentation, but not being crazy. I don't know how to do both.
Yeah, and I think fans are so hyper focused on Ravens, Chiefs in that next tier of the playoffs, but if you deal with the Chargers or the Broncos or what, like they're smart coaches, really smart offensive coaches on that other side, where, to your point, if you show too much, they are going to have some time to attack it. My concern is that everybody, the nervous mafia, all the concerns and emotional scarring that we have, the defense right now over the last month is seeming to confirm some of those biggest fears of a total letdown in the postseason. And so I do want to see some sign of life, whether it might not have to be a total change schematically. Maybe you are holding back some stuff, but these guys got to get healthy. We need to start seeing them play together, because there has been a built-in excuse over the last 3 weeks of like, well, you had your starting safeties out. You had Rasul Douglas out. Matt Milano's been out. They were starting Balen Spector. Like you can kind of tell yourself all these stories like you talked about the Jets fans having to do. We need to not have those stories lingering into the postseason so that we can see this unit healthy together. At least for me, I need to see it. RJ here, that I want to address this. RJ, if you were going to not use your full playbook, then why are you even playing the starters then? There's multiple reasons, right? You still need to win a game. You want to win the 2 seed. You want to be in that position in the 2 seed. You want to have that game at home. So you're still trying to win. Also, like, there's a part of this that fans don't always want to talk about, and this is why teams like the Jets and the Patriots are still trying and nobody's tanking, is there's incentives and there's film to put out there, and this is these guys' occupation, and they are still going to try to do everything they can to win. It's a fine line, like you said, a needle to thread of, we don't want to show every part of the playbook's big. There's a lot to it, and it's not that you're not showing all the types of plays that you can run. They're still game planning specifically to beat and expose the Jets in certain ways. It's just that they're not giving the looks. They're going to use some looks maybe that they've already put on tape. They're not going to switch it up too deep to where they're running the same play from a totally different look that they're saving for a bigger opponent, something that they're going to try to break a tendency on.
Also, another element, there's only so many roster spots. Like,
Correct.
Go back and look at normal games, like good games. Look at the Lions game, look at fun games that we really enjoyed, and look at the percentage of snaps and how many other guys play besides the full-time starters. Even if you flip that, those guys still have to play. Like, every receiver plays, every linebacker plays,
There's only so
every
many
defensive
O-line guys,
lineman
yeah.
plays. Like, the only guys you can, like, quote unquote rest is you could put other offensive linemen in and probably play the whole game. You could put another quarterback in and probably play the whole game. Everybody else, like, we only have one other tight end. We only have so many other wide receivers. We only carry 5. So, like, you could flip it around and, like, those guys could play a little bit more.
Yeah.
All 3 running backs play all the time. Like, there's only so many spots. Like, a linebacker is one that they play a lot of the snaps.
And
so
there's only so many
linebackers,
practice squad call-ups you can do. Like, you can't
can only
just,
do
like,
2.
you can't shift things out all for every spot.
So, like, you can flip the other, you can take the 5 inactives and you can make it Josh and Bernard and Ben.
Josh is going to keep his streak alive. You're not going to.
Correct. I take that back. He won't even be inactive because he's going to start and then just come out after the first drive or the first play.
Yeah.
So you only have so many of those spots to play with to protect people, and then some guys just have to play. Like, we don't have enough humans to do it. So that's going to come into play even in Week 18. In Week 18, I fully expect that we treat that as close to a bye week as what we can. Like, we're going to call up the maximum amount of players. We are going to
let Josh take a snap and get out of there.
Yeah, Josh is going to take a snap and then be out. We're going to rest everybody that we can. But even in that game, you're going to see Mac Hounds is going to play a ton. Quentin Morris is going to play a ton. The guys that, like, AJ Epinesa is going to play a ton.
This is
Wayne
under the
Carter
assumption they
and Austin
win.
Johnson.
Correct.
Like guys who we need to play in the playoffs are going to play in that game. Like it's just there's no other way to do it because you can't construct a roster in any other way.
But this is under the assumption the Bills win this week, right? Because if they
Correct.
if they drop,
if they don't win this week, then we kind of need to win in week 18. So
unless the Ravens, well, no, we won't know.
No, the Ravens already won this week, so they've already played their week 17 game.
And it's a 1:00 game next week, so you won't.
We don't know that yet. The week 18 schedule they won't put out here until and some of that's going to depend on how this goes. So they want the example being is they're going to play Miami, Denver, Cincinnati, the Chargers all at the same time because they can't have one of them know ahead of time, which means they're probably going to play the Bills at the same time as those teams. Although the Bills are an easy one they could do ahead of time. Sure. The Bills are one they could throw on Saturday just because, but they'll probably lump them all in at 1:00 is my guess. Yeah. But with Denver and Los Angeles being a key part of that and their West Coast teams, we could be lumped into all of the 4:00 games because they're going to want those teams to play at the same time. And there'll be a big group of NFC teams that they all want to play at the same time as they're going for their playoff spot. So they just don't want anyone to know ahead of time what it is. So like Pittsburgh and Baltimore are going to play at the same time. That's going to be locked in to play all at once. They'll have those. Houston and Buffalo are both kind of flimsy. KC is in the same boat. Like it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So those are easy ones to throw around. The ones that will be the most intriguing to be able to do it are going to be maybe Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. I'm looking to see if there's any like outright like quote unquote playoff games, and there really aren't. There's not a ton of games where both teams have something to play for.
That Kansas City one could have been if they dropped a game. That
correct.
Denver, but now
if Denver was fighting for a playoff spot and KC was fighting for the 1 seed, it would have been. But it's going to be the NFC ones. It's going to be obviously the biggest one is Minnesota Detroit next week, where that's going to be like the 1 seed game.
That's
like that's the game for the bye, the 1 seed
and the division. That's crazy.
Yeah. God, there's not very good football. And it's weird that there's so many games with a team with something to play for against a team with nothing to play for. Like almost every single game.
Yeah. That's almost one of the things in joking about the Bengals that like I think people that were worried about the Bengals sneaking in is that they need some teams that are playing teams that have nothing.
Yeah.
Like it would have to be huge, like 2 or 3 huge total letdowns.
And they're going to be playing Pittsburgh in week 18, and Pittsburgh's not going to know their future, and they're going to be playing for a home game and playing for seeding. So they're going to try in their game. So there's a bunch of weird stuff. This week, I will say the one that's closest to a playoff game is Denver Cincinnati. That's basically an elimination game huge for Cincinnati. So that one this week is a huge game to watch for. That will basically, if Denver wins, it eliminates Cincinnati. Cincinnati has to win to keep it alive, and the win matters a lot because it's against Denver, who they're trying to chase.
Is it bad that I'm kind of like, I know I also don't want the Bengals to sneak in, but
you want Moyer to suffer a little bit more, one more week?
I would like Greg to have a little more suffering in his life, but no, but I want Indy to steal the spot, and they're playing the Giants. Like,
yeah. It's very tempting. Like, yes, I would rather Indy, but not so much that I want to
give Bengals a chance.
That the Bengals could get in there. That is
Greg Moyer is like losing his mind hearing me.
Yes, the ideal scenario, and honestly, a non-zero chance is that Miami is still legitimately alive,
just as much as the Bengals.
Correct. Yes. Matter of fact, I think a slight notch above the Bengals, if I know the scenarios right. So it goes in order. Denver's the most likely. Indy is actually the next most likely, then Miami, then Cincinnati. And Miami and Cincinnati are pretty low. They're down in like the 10 to 13% range. Indy has a little bit more, and Denver just needs to win one of their games to be able to lock theirs up. So it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, if I could pick, I would much rather probably Indy is my number one choice. Miami's probably, I'd rather play Miami than Denver. I think
people are sleeping on Denver. I really do.
Yeah, I'll trust that McDermott and Babbage can mess with Bo Nix. Like I'll take my chances there, but their defense is legit. But I'll take my chances that they can mess with them. I've watched enough games rooting for Denver to win and wanting Bo Nix to make good decisions to realize that like in the playoffs I'm very comfortable betting against Bo Nix. But yeah, we'll see where those ones come in. So again, we'll have lots of fun stuff to watch for. Aaron, I'll be here for you the whole time. But let's tell the
Greg
folks.
Tompsett Sports Show will be here for you for
Yeah,
more
we'll be
playoff
there, kind of
scenarios.
breaking down some of the different scenarios as those come up and having a good time. Our friends BetUS, one more time here. Again, use promo code YouTube150. What is your score prediction for this weekend?
This weekend, I agree with Dan. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than we want. I think I learned my lesson last week against the Patriots. Like, these games are weird. They're wonky. They're at the end of the year. The Bills are in a weird spot to what we talked about earlier of how much do you show, how aggressive do you go into these games. I think there is a little bit of the human nature, just like us, Greg, where last week my concern was, hey, I didn't put in my best effort in preparation for the show. I don't know that the Bills put in their best preparation and effort for that game. And I think that it showed early. And unfortunately, I don't know if they got the lesson entirely where they came out and they still won, even not putting their best effort forward, and were able to over 4 quarters able to do it. So hopefully they've learned that lesson, but there's a good chance they're going to still have to have a tough slog fest and learn that lesson again. But I do have them winning. I have it 27-24. I think the 24 in it getting closer is one of those ones where it's at the end and it's not super
27-17 and then they score.
Yeah, and it's one of those frustrating drives where they are in just like kind of a prevent coverage, and Rodgers goes down the field and gets one to Adams, and Mathis ends up beating Chouse in the finals because there's some garbage touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers for his fantasy team. And it's going to just be one of those annoying ones where it feels closer and everyone's pissed and nothing feels great, but you ended up winning. But the matter of fact is that all they got to do is win. I don't care if it's by 3-2, whatever it is. You just got to win this game, seal up that 2 seed, and just allow some rest going forward and just get into this postseason.
I've got the opposite. That was the wake up call. They were embarrassed. I got 31-16.
Yeah.
I think they come out, and I think it's mostly run game. I think it is vanilla, but I think we vanilla the crap out of them.
I love it.
And that they are they are a team that is very ready to give up. There's a lot of quit in this team. There's a lot of quit. There's a lot of business decisions on that Jets team. I think they're very ready to quit on that coach. I think they're ready to quit on Aaron Rodgers. And I think that they are I think they're super excited that he's more interested in his own documentary than he is in the team. And I fully expect that to implode, and I think it's going to be maybe kind of a boring game, but I think like a 3-headed monster game. I think all 3 running backs go for like 50+ yards.
Yeah. I think we get some turnovers.
We see a good one that way.
Yeah,
I think some sloppy play from them and some groans with that fan base, and maybe some bickering on the sideline. Maybe Garrett Wilson loses it on Rodgers on the sideline. That would be a fun one. Maybe after like the 7th consecutive Devontae Adams target, Garrett Wilson loses his crap and goes crazy. I can
wouldn't
enjoy
mind.
that.
He could stay here if he wants.
Yeah, I would
you know
take
what I mean? I know the bickering amongst their fan base. I know Fireman Steve or Ed or whatever the hell his name is like super mad all the time that they don't show him enough.
Scuba Steve
with a fireman's hat. Freaking grown up. He's a grown up. And he's just dude. Oh my god, could you imagine? Crazy.
Yeah, there was an official report, like a media official report of a statement that the Jets refused to put him on the Jumbotron to do his traditional
He is
call.
not happy about it.
The nerve that they would be able to do so. That's just outrageous.
Didn't he like give up on the team years ago and then came back?
Multiple times.
What an
it's
adult baby.
Yeah.
Anyways. All right, let's get out of here. Let these people go.
We appreciate it.
A fascinating game between the Bears and Seahawks happening.
There's some ugly. They're out of all the football games I've seen this year. This sure is one of them.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it's 6-3. It's terrible football.
My poor brother.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody. Give us a like, give us a rating, give us a review. That's all Aaron and I want for Christmas. Just help us out. Press that like button. Give us a rating and a review. It means the world. But on behalf of fantastic producer Chris Kepner and my co-host Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. Our friends at BetUS ask you to please gamble responsibly. And if you are hurt in a car, call William Mattar, 844-444-4444. You know the number. He's our lovable lawyer du jour around Western New York. Everybody loves him. Make sure you check out all their good stuff as well. But on behalf of everybody here at Cover One, we are out.